Welcome to Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi, a podcast that showcases people you may not know who are choosing to use their gifts to inspire and move the planet.
Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Out of Savannah. I am super excited that my guest, Fola Veritas, is here, and she's going to let you know who she is and what it is that she does, and also how she can help you. So, Fola, take it away.
Ooh, thanks, Tammi. Hi, everyone. So my name's Fola, and I'm located up in Canada, Alberta area. And I think we kind of connected, Tammi, because of the similarity with like the nursing world,
Yeah.
the curiosity around like plant medicine.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of like my focus is on magical practices, altered states. And you reached out through YouTube, where I have a YouTube channel called Deep Mind Squared, and really just a place to talk about magic and psychedelics, plant medicines, all that good stuff, and use it to really align with like our personal truths is kind of, like, because to me, it's like, well, there's healing and it's beneficial. I think there's a lot of negative attachment almost to the term healing. And people feel like they're broken, they need to be fixed, or like whatever the case. And it can be this endless cycle, which I recognize even for myself. It's so easy to just get caught up in that sort of cycle of life. And so for me, my life journey is about like connecting to the truth, connecting to the personal truth. And that's a huge part of kind of where I've started my life and where it's taking me. So thank you for having me here.
Yes. Now let's get into it. How did you get to this world? Because, like you said, we also connected over, because I heard you talking about, nursing, and I heard you talking about mushrooms, and I was like, man, yeah, that's awesome. And then I also heard you talking about Reiki energy and stuff like that. And, we know that those worlds actually, kind of connect, and it's good. But how did you actually get to the place where you said, you know what, I'm going to learn Reiki, and I want to, use that type of energy. How did you get there? Because I love hearing about those journeys, because they're awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I would identify that experience, even though like throughout most of my life, I was very much interested or drawn to different spirituality, religious, like studying religious history and all that sort of stuff. And then when I was working like partway through my career as a psychiatric nurse, I had like what I would call a spiritual emergence. Spiritual awakening, or whatever someone might call it. For me, and a lot of the language I was learning, it was like a very intense experience. And that was, at the time, I was working actually with what we call like our police and crisis team. So it's like me as the therapist, partnered with a police officer, and then we go into people's homes and do assessments, and sometimes take people to hospital if they're like maybe in a very unwell situation or not safe. And so I was having this like mind-blowing, like, oh my gosh, reality is so different. I could start feeling like this sensations. I didn't really know what was happening. And at the same time, I was working, like assessing people who were telling me, like, I'm like, oh, like I hear angels sometimes, or these things happen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I do too. Like what, so my whole world just did this complete shift during that time, where I started to realize like, oh, maybe there's something more. Like, who am I to come in and say, you're psychotic or mentally unwell? You should go to the hospital and be forced into treatment. When like there's so many people. And that's when my community started to open up more with like folks who are like normalizing a lot of the stuff that in psychiatry we tend to dismiss and not look at the cultural, spiritual pieces. And as a person of color, that too kind of was like, it's like, oh, how come, like, for, in Canada there's a large like indigenous population that seems, same, I'm sure in the States, there's these marginalized groups that don't really get the same support or treatment and are kind of
Yes.
like forgotten because
Yes.
of a lot of the lack of cultural, spiritual knowledge. And I was feeling that for myself. And so that's kind of what led me to start the path, I guess,
Hmm.
as things just start showing up. And so Reiki was one of those ones. I received a treatment from someone I knew at the time, and it just really like opened my eyes to like, oh, like maybe there's something more here. And then I took a class, not, just took a class and not really thinking where it would lead. And yeah, here it is, I guess, however many years later. I teach Reiki now. Like to me, Reiki is a very much a foundational aspect. I tell most people, like, if you're interested in energy, or maybe you want to deepen what that even means in life,
Yes. Yes.
live a life of a bit more balance, and like taking like level 1 Reiki is just a great opening part, because then that led to a wide range of other things like the shamanic healing and
Yes.
all the other magical sort of ritualistic things that I do, and
Yes.
from the place of a self-empowered place. Whereas before I was interested, I didn't know what to do, I didn't understand it as much. Now through that healing, personal and ancestral healing, it's really opened things. So yeah, that's kind of where it all started and taken off.
Gotcha. And that's the real part of that, because I always tell people, I said, how they say that marijuana is the gateway to other drugs,
Yeah.
which I don't agree with that at all. I believe it's plant medicine, but that's not what they say, and I say the same thing about Reiki. It's like the gateway to energy to me. It's like the
Yeah.
first thing that you open the door, and probably because it's the one thing that now people recognize. And people,
Mhm.
they don't look at you crazy when you say, "Oh, I do Reiki," or, like me, I make Reiki infused
Oh,
jewelry. You know?
cool.
So I like to make my jewelry and I infuse Reiki energy in it. And so I don't look crazy when I say that now.
Mm.
Now, 40 years ago, we probably did.
Yeah, it's changed significantly.
But it
Yeah.
opened the door to so many other things, like we were talking in the green room. Like I started, looking at the chakras even deeper and really getting into that type of healing and stuff. And so, I love the fact that you talked about how, now you're teaching Reiki, and, and the doors that Reiki has opened for you. And so I want to kind of speak on that. So as you started experiencing this different type of energy, how did it change, your life? Because for me, it changed my life.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it was like a mix of things, I suppose, and that spiritual development, deeper connection to oneself, that for me, Reiki really opened the door, and it opened me my like energy path along like the aligned path of what my purpose was, if I can use that word.
Yes.
And so a lot of things that weren't really aligned with the purpose at that point kind of had to fall away, like even being married and having to go through divorce and, moving and all these sorts of things, leaving my work within healthcare, even, like it's all just been this continual step. And the thing I've learned, and maybe this again is the Scorpio energy, for myself, it's like that transformative birth, death, rebirth process is really like, I guess, highlighted in my life experience. And I
Yeah.
can see that even now here, moving to this new house, like so many things changing, so many things having to be let go of. And it
Yes.
comes with like all these emotions and
Yes.
the grief and the not so pleasant stuff, and yet also like the hope,
Yes.
what's going to come. And Reiki, I guess, helps with, uh, kind of, I want to say, sort of quickening the process, especially with the attunements, and also allowing for oneself to like know how to clear or balance the
Yes.
energy, so that when these transformative death rebirth processes happen, it's so much, I want to say, easier. There's something lighter that because we know we're not alone, so to speak. And for me, that's a
Yes.
part of that. Like it's just, yeah, that universal healing, like energy or love. that can be present. So, and I think no matter what, we're like, if whether we're trained in Reiki or what level, or if we're familiar, I feel everyone has that like connection
Yes.
to that universal energy and is constantly emitting it, even if we're not consciously choosing to, it's just when you become a Reiki practitioner, learn about these things, we become more conscious. And
Yes.
so then we step into life in a much more conscious way, or more meaningful way. And that, I think, is where we get the terms like awake or asleep or whatever. It's just like being aware. So that awareness is, yeah, great.
Yeah. And it's if you think about it, it's like, I never knew that this world existed in this way.
Mhm.
And it affects, like your whole life, just like you said. It's like, oh my God, now I it's almost like when you can see colors,
Mhm.
or what's that other thing people talk about all the time? Auras. When you
Mhm.
can see auras, and we go through these seasons in this world where, everybody's on the auras and everybody's on the mindfulness, and there's always, to me, every year there's a buzzword.
Yeah.
Oh, what are we talking about this year? We're talking about frequency,
Mhm.
these kind of things. And so, um, as you move forward in your work, where are you looking to go as far as, the type of work that you do, and maybe even the type of clients that you work with? I mean, what does that look like for you going forward?
Mhm. Yeah, well, that's a great question. So sometimes I'm like, I don't even know. Like and since even before moving here, I was getting quite a few people reaching out who have like pretty significant mental health diagnoses.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do initially when I was kind of first becoming like conscious of, oh, like all this stuff in psychiatry versus spirituality, and how can I merge those? And in Brazil, they have these spiritist hospitals where people can go and receive energy work or energy passes, which is kind of like Reiki.
Really? In
Yeah, and
Brazil?
yeah, that's like a very like they're like volunteer run slash kind of like I don't know if I should say government run. It's both like run by volunteers and like professionals like psychiatrists, psychologists,
Well, that
nurses,
would be
and
amazing.
they support people. And the whole premise there is that like mental health conditions are actually because of maybe entities attaching, or so this is some of the work I do too. And I felt really called to creating that type of space for folks, but more from the place of, I think many people are misunderstood and don't have the knowledge, the place to talk about what's going on for them without feeling judged,
Yes.
all this stuff. And that's kind of where I've I guess held myself from that like peer perspective. It very much is a balance between like the professional and the peer of like normalizing and listening, and sometimes when it's appropriate sharing, and allowing people their own process to figure out what's their framework in
Yes.
which they can like put all the things that they're experiencing and start to understand it. And so there's a magician, occultist known as Israel Regardie, and I like how he's identified that the real future and the way that we could benefit like society as a whole, or humanity's wellness, is the combination of like psychology and magic.
Yes.
And I do believe that. And to me, the magic is the energy work and the ways in which there's different rituals or practices that can be done, breath work, all sorts of different things. And then the
Tapping.
psychology.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so that's kind of how I see it. Like, because sometimes stuff needs to be cleared at like a deeper astral level, if I can call it deeper or higher, whatever people want to identify that as.
Mm-hmm.
And some folks might not be in the energetic place to do that for themselves. So that's why they might reach out to folks who are, able to enter that space or have more familiarity within those spaces
Yeah.
to clear things, or
Yes.
whatever needs to be rearranged is the word I want to use for some reason.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the place, and then for me, it's like the creative, playful place. How can I bring more of that playfulness and the fun? And so really using like my partner and I, we create music and like
Oh,
playing that
nice.
sort of, and like that's a huge part of the future, and the video content, just reaching more folks kind of outside where I don't have to have this like I can be there and I don't have to be there, so there's something
Yes.
about that I feel is lighter, and more folks can have the benefits of that, and it will not drain me as
Yes.
much as
Yes.
I can only have like so many people sitting in a chair next to me every day,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I agree with all that. I think that's an amazing space, because what it sounds like to me as I was listening to you talk is you are really interested in creating safe spaces for people, and
Yeah,
holding space so
I
that
hope
they,
I do.
I mean, that's what it sounds like, is like, you are interested in creating these safe spaces for people. And that is huge, because that's what people need, because okay, because I'm going to share this part. So like I used to work in intake in a detox mental health facility, right?
Mhm.
So we would get the people to come in, and I worked in Arizona where there's a large indigenous population. And so we know that, those people a lot of times are so deeply connected spiritually. And, they do hear the voices and they do have the visions and all of this kind of stuff, but that's normal for them.
Mhm.
So I would have to, when I would bring them in, and of course, I was the only one that looked like me there as well. So I would bring them in and I would say, do you, because that's the questions we have to ask, right? Do you hear things other people don't hear? Do you see things other people don't see? And all the while I'm sitting here going, I do, because I'm hella
Mhm.
clairaudient. I hear all the time, like all the
Mhm.
time, and I was like, I've been having visions and shit since I was a child. I already knew,
Mhm.
so when I asked them, I ask in a way and I say stuff like this. I would say, so, I have to ask you this question, no, I'm not judging you or anything like this. I said, if you tell me something, I said, I'm going to listen to you. So I would tell them. And I said, do you hear things other people don't hear? And so, they would wait a minute and there'd be a big little pause. And then they would say, yeah, I have since I was, young.
Mhm.
And I say, oh, okay. And I never wrote it down, or I never put it in
Mhm.
the computer, because they
Mhm.
already told me that, they had these gifts, because
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
was feeling compromised, because I'm like, I know that these are gifts, and why do we want to drug them to stop it? But then I would ask the other questions like, are they telling you things to harm yourself or anything like that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it wasn't that and it was, a peaceful interaction, then, why are we stopping it?
Yeah. Yeah. As long as there's no disruption in someone's functioning or,
Right.
and I think, yeah, for myself, it would be like the wording. It's not like, oh, auditory hallucination, because whatever
Right,
that
right.
means, like it
Yeah.
just instantly means that it's not of a reality.
Yeah.
Versus like, sometimes, might experience witnessing, hearing this voice of an ancestor or whatever, because usually when we dive into it a lot too, it's like tends to be around that. It's like very spiritual sort of experiences or teachings that are coming through. And yeah, I think it's like just shifting the language around that so that we're not labeling people in a particular way. I think people are just scared of things they can't see. And that's
Woo,
why,
that part.
like tarot card readings or things like that are tangible seems to be the best kind of another gateway of like people coming into realize, because it's like, oh, if I can see the card and what it's saying, it's like a protection barrier between my future, the self, and whatever, versus if someone just like channels information. Oftentimes people are like, even though a card reading to me is just like channeling, it doesn't even matter what the card is, like it's just the message coming, that people can be more freaked out when they can't physically see or hold things. Even the person who's, yeah, hallucinating, quote
Mhm.
unquote,
Yeah,
it can be. And I can say that from experience, because it is like, oh my gosh, what's happening?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually had this same discussion with another girl on the show, and we talked
Mm,
about how, because I was sharing with her how I had got a message from Spirit, I don't know, sometime last year or something, to tell me to stop using the cards, like on the regular, because I actually do a matter of fact, this is my Saturday. I do a Saturday a month in a metaphysical shop where I do readings. And the Spirit was like, stop using the cards. And I was like, but I like the cards, like
Yeah.
these are like
They're
my
pretty.
favorites, right?
Oh yeah, cool.
Favorites, right? I love the
Mm.
cards. And I'm like, I love the cards, and so I was like, all right. And I realized now it was that, they didn't want me to be relying on those all the time.
Mhm.
But what I realized too is that people like to see you with the freaking cards. Even if
Yeah.
you're channeling, just like you said, we are really channeling the information. The card is just a tool.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's a
people,
visual tool, like, yeah.
so I found sometimes that I'm just sitting there shuffling the cards, just going back, but I'm already telling them
Talking.
whatever. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that's what people
Exactly.
want to see. It's like you said, it's a visual, it's like a visual connection for them, and it's
Mhm.
for the crazy part about it is just like you said, we're channeling the same freaking information.
Yeah, exactly. And
you know.
sometimes though the cards have like a symbol or, image that like needs to be really pointed at. Like someone be like, oh my gosh, there's a bottle on the table of that card. Like that stirs something in their internal mind. Like, so yeah, it's both. It's just, yeah, the tangible world, the reality versus of energy versus the physical world. Like
Yes.
what is it that we're in? And yeah.
Yeah. And what do
Um,
you also do? Do you also give mediumship messages, or are you in that world as well?
I wouldn't really, I mean, like, yeah. It's funny. I like attempted to host a channeling event
Oh,
and I like completely freaked out. There were like so many people there and like people I didn't know and it turned out into exactly what it needed to be. Um and and I've been to some mediumship things or I've like received say an energy healing like or the shamanic healing sessions, someone's ancestor or someone might come. I wouldn't really say that they've given me a message, mostly because the person's kind of sleeping. I guess there is a message. I will speak it, but it's not like if you've ever been to like a mediumship like church. We have something called St. Bridget's here in Edmonton, and
okay.
it's like a spiritualist church. So you can
Yeah.
go in and they'll do a ceremony and they'll like mediumship, do like channel people's passed on loved ones or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really say I've done that, though that's like something that's curious to me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm curious about that. Just, yeah.
Because here's the thing that I learned,
Hmm.
doing, because I've been doing this show now for 5 years. I did not even realize. You know? But I started doing interviewing spiritual entrepreneurs this year. I mean, I have interviewed them in the past, but now like that is the niche that I decided to choose. Like I was interviewing everybody and anybody and all kinds of people, and it was amazing because I got
Okay.
to talk to different people. Like I interviewed a barbecue seasoning couple.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, you
Right.
definitely niched into like, yeah.
I did. I was like, you know what? Because I started thinking about it, because people are all, oh, you need to niche down, you need to this and that. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. And so finally this year, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna niche down to spiritual entrepreneurs because for one thing, it's not a lot of people interviewing us,
Hmm.
and I was like, and then the other thing, I was like, I really enjoy those conversations. It's like
The
you deep
line.
down on it, right? So I'm like, all right. So I started talking to like mediums and I talked to some psychics. And so what I learned was that um all psychics are not mediums, but all
Hmm.
mediums are psychic.
Hmm.
And I noticed that people that are in the psychic world a lot of times they're like, oh no, I'm not a medium, da 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 da. But then the people that are in the medium world say, oh yeah, and
Yeah.
taking those classes myself, because I've been taking classes since like the beginning of the year in mediumship, and those are some of the things that we do. We do psychic
Yeah.
stuff, we do
Okay.
mediumship stuff. We connect to the deceased loved ones as well as the ones that are living.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
been pretty interesting. That journey. That's why I asked about that because I know that so many of us are like wanting to dip our toe in that world. But do you feel like an affinity toward that when you experience the loved ones coming through, even in the shamanic sessions?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I suppose I do. For me though, hmm, I'm not sure really why that is. Maybe it's probably tied to a bit like, well, I don't want to get things wrong. Don't want to
Yes,
mislead people. Even
yes,
with card readings,
yes.
and so I've done some like channeling, other channeling in like smaller groups, and I've enjoyed that, like connecting to whatever, once we did like a Mary Magdalene channeling, and that was like the
Oh,
most
nice.
intense one. And I think that also probably like made me realize the importance of, like you're saying, either really learning the proper methods,
Yeah.
and also because what was happening, like, so, and I wish we'd recorded this when we finished. Everyone was like, why didn't we record this?
Right.
Like, we weren't really, and which probably, I guess, maybe there's a reason they didn't want that to happen. But it was just like information coming out. And I remember being in the very like expansive like field. And then towards the end, like I just remember like I could feel my body starting to hurt, and like a very intense sort of pain, like
Mm-hmm.
just for, I think maybe from sitting, like it was like I can't even explain what maybe that was. And then someone, like the last sort of question or statement someone asked, they asked a question, and then like the channel, like Mary Magdalene was like no more, like no more questions, like Fola's body can't take any more of the energy. And then it like just stopped.
Oh, wow.
And I came back and I was like, oh my God, like that was horrific. And I can't help but think it's because right before we went into the space, we were having just like all this food, and like not like the best food. It was like cheese and
Oh, good
bread
food.
with like olive oil and balsamic vinegar. Like we
Oh,
were
the
having this
good
whole like this,
food.
yeah. And I like could feel my body inside, like the muscle fibers after like almost like fiery and hurting.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh, okay, like in future, definitely have to be more like prepped. I hadn't had it like that before. Like I've channeled things or connected with beings, that was like definitely like an intense energy that came. So, moving here into this new place, it's interesting. Some stuff has been like showing up around some of that. And yeah, I definitely do connect with like entities or beings. It's just a matter, I guess, of what that wants to look like. So I'm open spirit.
I was gonna say that to me is the most important. That's one of the things I found on this journey is the most important is being open to receive. And
Mhm,
I say that like every single day, and
mhm,
even when I go into my meditations and, my visualizations and shit, and I go into my body, I say, you know what, I'm open to receive.
mhm,
And I realize the colossal importance of that,
mhm,
and it's like, oh man, So when you I want to ask a question. When you connect
mhm,
with people, say like somebody comes and they say, "Oh, I want to get a session with you," da 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 da. Share what that looks like, for
mhm.
you. Like, how would you guide them into, yeah,
Yeah, I just tell people it's very intuitively led, because folks come for all different sorts of things. If it's just counseling, they just might want to talk. They're not really even I feel like most people come, they're drawn because of the spiritual sort of alternative viewpoint that maybe I bring in. Yet they're not really at the place to receive like energy. And like I said, I feel like Reiki's always happening. Like if I could say it as an action, like
yeah,
energy is moving, even just with us talking and connecting with
yes,
each other. And so usually it's just the like what's going on in someone's life, what's showing up at that point, what's really standing out. And then like spirit, like you said, that surrender, like spirit's going to guide the conversation, and things come into my awareness that like I will speak or whatever I might notice in the person's energy. If it's like an energy healing session, they most likely are laying on a table, and then like I do the process of like the Reiki and just supporting. And I also like do like bring in other sorts of like vibration through sound, whether it's like vocal sounds, singing, and like the drum and tuning forks. And so it's just, yeah, whatever the person's body needs. Like a deeper process I do, like that compassionate depossession is like kind of like an entity removing process. Sometimes people feel like that's something. And so that's a bit more lengthy process that sometimes folks go through. And that involves them sort of like engaging through channeling, I
Mm,
would say,
mm.
to
Nice.
clear whatever that entity is and let it go on, transition on. So yeah, it just depends. This is very gentle, I'd like to say. I mean, I'd like to think it's gentle, the process. Sometimes people have different energy moving, emotions moving, you know. Yeah. It's just for me too, a huge part of it, and I guess this is where the plant medicine stuff comes in, and working in psychiatry with the crisis team for so long is like the shadow, like being able, you said that about being able to be in safe space. It's like, I think what it is, it's like being able to be with someone no matter what is showing up, even like the deepest, darkest secrets, so to speak,
Yeah.
or views or beliefs or emotions. It's like
Mm-hmm.
just recognizing like this is a non-judgmental place to come and share that and to let it go. It's not for me to take on, it's just like for the earth to take or whatever. And like then we don't have to carry that baggage, so to speak. We
Yes.
can
Yes.
acknowledge it as like what it is, and
Yeah.
then it just becomes lighter. Like,
Yeah.
so that's like a huge part, I think, of any process. I hope to
Yeah.
continue.
I mean, it does, it feels like that is, to me, it feels like that is where you are supposed to be. Like that's your space, because I can feel the passion that you have for it, and it's almost like, you know how when you've been through something and then you're helping people to go through it, it's
Mhm.
like, man, because you can actually see past the situation because you're not in it now. They are.
Yeah.
They can't see anything but here. They can't even see out here, but you're
Mhm.
there as a guide to help them to, navigate this time that to them feels like the end of the world. But
Mhm.
you know that it's not because you've already done it.
Yeah. Well, mostly. I mean, I am where I am now, and God knows where I'm going. Yeah, exactly. Though, because sometimes folks come in and I'm like, oh, I was like exactly in that situation, or some version of that situation.
Right.
When I was at the start of my kind of spiritual emergence and like the confusion and
I like
chaos
that.
and uncertainty, and I'm like, oh, I get so excited seeing people there because it's like, where's their life gonna go?
Yeah.
Like, if they really follow, and I just get so excited
Yeah.
seeing that and like hearing and witnessing students or like clients who come and then where they've like transitioned. Yeah, it's really beautiful to like witness people's life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, you know, and I laugh about it because I was actually talking to a young lady that was dealing with a situation like I was. I was like,
Mhm.
and she was young, so I was like, listen, I said, honey, I said, it's not gonna last forever. I said, that's the
Mhm.
first thing I have to tell you. I said, number two, I said, you can make it through. I said, and I'm
Mhm.
telling you, I said, I'm not telling you something I read about in the book. I'm not telling you something I heard about. I'm telling you something I know. I said, just keep going. I said, my grandmother used to say, live a little longer.
Mhm.
And I think about that all the time because it's like she would say that, girl, and it would be like I would be telling her some stuff and I'd be way up here, this is going on and I don't know what to do about that. And should I go this way? Should I go that way? Should I say this? What should I do? And that would be me, right? And she would say, she would look at me and she would take a deep breath. I think about it now and she would say, just live a little longer. And she
Mhm.
was real soft spoken. I mean, even more
Wise.
than me. So she would just
Yeah.
say, you live a little longer. And a girl like 4'9", tiny little thing, but so full of power, and she would say,
Yeah.
just live
Yeah.
a little longer. And you're like, well, that's not what I wanted to hear. I want to know, should I go this way? Should I take the left, instead of the right? Should I go up the hill? Should I dive into the water? What should I do? And she would
Mhm.
say, just live a little longer.
No, and that's like, yeah, great advice. So it's like patience, pause. And that's
Right?
like one of the hardest things for us to do as humans in a very uh I want to say toxic masculine like way of life, you know, like we've taken something that's really beneficial, the action oriented life, and we've made it kind of like grimy and not the best because we're just like do, accomplish and like
What is it?
whatever.
Hustle,
And
hustle, hustle, hustle.
yeah, instead
Yeah.
of just like kind of just waiting and being in the receptivity of the
Yes.
feminine,
Yes.
in the healthy feminine, because
Yes.
there's obviously unhealthy
Yes,
feminine
of course.
energies too. So yeah, I like those words. Your grandmother's wise
She
lady.
was,
She was,
girl, she
yeah.
was so amazing. I laugh. I tell people, I said she was my person. And I
Mm,
miss her more than anybody else that has transitioned. But I also see her more than anybody else too, because she
yeah.
visits me all the time. I mean, she's my like I said, sometimes I hear my name being called and it's in her voice. And I'm like, okay, oh, what do I need to pay attention to? You know?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, thank you.
Right? Like, okay, all
Mm,
right. I laugh because I tell people, I said, almost every mediumship session that I have been in with people, my grandparents show up. Either
mm,
one or both of them. Almost
yeah,
everyone. And
yeah.
it's been like it's almost been like a benchmark for me. Because I'm
Mm,
like, if they're really connected, my grandparents will show
for
up. They
sure.
always do, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about where do you see yourself in like 10 years? I know that's hard for us in this world. But when you do your visualizations, because I know you do,
Yeah.
where are you envisioning?
2033. Yeah,
Oh,
you know,
Lord, that's what
I'm not sure. Like I feel like and I was telling my partner this, you know, he's like setting up the studio and like doing all this stuff. And there's like these rooms. I'm like, I don't really see like what this is supposed to be right yet. I'm like, and I think it's because I haven't fully closed off the previous place. And I'm
got you.
like kind of in this in between. And what I think I shared earlier, like a bit about where I thought it was gonna be,
Yeah.
and maybe that will be it, like whatever, some type of like a space and like holding supports for people and just like reaching more folks through like the creative ventures. Um, and yet at the same time, I'm like, I'm kind of not sure. But I guess though at the same time, like what I would like, I really feel called to like to teach more like magic and the occult, like esoteric knowledge, the hold space for like people to kind of explore like that stuff and the altered states um, through the sound, because we host sound healing journeys and these kind of like sound experiences, and I just feel like there's something about that type of like this, I'm seeing it like this community that's built and like engaging and sharing
Oh,
through this
wow.
like magical knowledge, and also like I don't want to say necessarily with kids, but there's something about like kids and the adults and like making it kind of this like family sort of oriented way of being. Because I think, you know, having a daughter, witnessing what she told me the other week, she's like, Mom, like I was teaching some kids how to feel energy. She's taking a
Wow.
Reiki class,
And
like
how
with
old is
my
she?
teacher. She's 9.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, and then she said that, I was like, oh, so cool. And I'm like, oh, and then I was like, oh, like I got a little scared because I had stuff happen to me in school with my magical curiosities that the
Yes.
Catholic school didn't really like.
Yeah.
And I just told her like, oh, like, you know, kind of check in, I guess. Like if you share these things and some people don't like it, you know, because this is something I constantly seem, I kind of bumped up to. Even just last night actually something happened that I
Wow.
bumped up to with like people's judgments, or you know, especially from certain other religious viewpoints or personal bias points, if I could say that, whatever.
Yes.
And I was like, you know, make sure that you're safe. And how do we educate these kids and encourage them to explore this stuff because they're like so naturally gifted. And
Yes.
she's like so wise. She's like, oh yeah, like I only talk to the people who know it. If they don't like feel interested or drawn to it, then I don't say anything, and like she's listening to her body, her intuition.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope that to kind of like awaken and normalize and reduce the fear of a
Yes.
lot of this stuff, because there's so much fear from the religious programming that like I know I experienced that. I really hope to like shake so people can again find their truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
We could do a whole show on that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That actually stopped me from being able to really get into the tarot like I wanted to,
Mhm.
because the church told us that was of the devil.
Mhm.
and somewhere in my mind, I still felt that way, not even realizing, recognizing that it was, like I had to really dive into the shadows to get that,
Mhm.
realize like I can do oracle cards all day long, but something about the tarot was like I could not even learn that stuff, and I was like, what is going on? And then I
Mhm.
dove into that because I was raised religious, Pentecostal holiness,
Mhm.
and yeah, and everything, everything is, they spend so much time talking about the devil, and everything is bad, and all this stuff. And so normalizing that for our children is going to be so huge, because it's going to have children that are awake already earlier than like us, like we went through
Yeah.
all these things and we had whatever, and we were having magical experiences as children, but who
Yeah.
do you share that with?
No one, or it
Right.
was downplayed, like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, because my kids sometimes be like, I see my bubble at bedtime, like she can see, her aura, like her auric field. The first time I
Yeah.
was like, what are you talking about? No, I was like, oh my god, like that's so cool. Like if I had ever said anything like that to my parents, it's like
Look, you
so
need to
yeah,
get
I
yourself
think,
together. That was what I used to. You need to
yeah.
get yourself together. I mean, stop, get your head out the clouds and all that kind of stuff. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, we,
Mhm.
and when we see that in our children and we can encourage it and inspire them,
Mhm.
that's the beauty and the magic, and that's going to be so good. I feel like, that is something that you are supposed to do, like a part of your destiny,
Yeah.
is to help
Yeah.
to normalize the magic for families and for parents, so that they can do that for their kids, like empower them, so
Mhm.
that they know how to encourage their kids to to feel the magic. And and I don't know about you, but in my sessions, a lot of times the first thing that I have to do, and that might even take more than one session, is to help people to learn how to connect to their body, so that they
Yeah. And,
even
mhm.
understand the messages that are coming to them, so they can receive them. And that's
Mhm.
like the most huge thing that
Mhm.
we have to do, because people are so disconnected from their bodies. They don't know what the hell they feel.
Mhm.
They feel stuff and they don't know what it means. They don't know that that is actually a message to them. Like, they're feeling the fear, and all of a sudden their chest is hurting, and, or their stomach, is killing them or whatever. And they don't know that these are messages that are coming to
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
regarding whatever they're dealing with. And so I think, you doing that and teaching that, that's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be fire.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, it's that
Yeah.
body connection or awareness, like in the
Yes.
womb space, like the whole everything moving down. It's like
Yes.
it's really going to be quite beneficial for
Yes.
how we all show up in that playfulness, creativity, joy,
Yes.
and like connection with each other, and like, and
Yes.
most importantly with the self.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I really like that. It's like
I'm excited about it. I cannot
happening.
wait to watch that journey unfold.
Thank you.
So I have one more
Mm-hmm.
question, because I know we got to land this plane. But my one last question is, if there was anything in the world that you could change, what would that be?
Mm. Yeah, I would say the main thing would be kind of around what we're talking about. It's just like for people to know that whatever their experiences are or their views, their beliefs, like there's no right or wrong around it. It's like it's like their particular journey. Um, and that whatever happens, even sometimes like really not so great things happen, that there's like learning potential within all of that. And so like that people can just feel this sense of like of love and acceptance, so that no matter what's happened or what choices they've made, like, you know, there's not going to be this person with like the back of the hand out to like, wow, no, that's not right, or punish
Wait,
them.
isn't that what God does? No.
Well, and that, yeah, I guess that's because like that's not the God in my perspective now. That's not the God that really exists, or that loving, omnipresent, omnipotent being. You know, it's like there's more to that energy, and it really is loving and accepting and allowing and wants to like bless all of us. And so the shame and the guilt and any emotions that just are like heavy and holding people like trapped.
Yes.
Because they think like the punishment needs to happen. You know, we've all been there, and like we come up to it again and again. I guess this is the polarity. So it's inevitable. Or just like that we can return to like the center point so much easier, I suppose.
That is
But at least people can be aware, like people can be aware of it, so that then they can choose that if they want it. From some, you know, again, some people don't want to choose that and they are aware. That's fine. So anyway.
And you're right about that. But that's amazing. That's a different answer than I've gotten. I always love it. It's like so many people, you know, that question is so huge. And so many people have, you know, like I had somebody that came on and said that, you know, they wouldn't change anything. And I thought that was pretty interesting, you know, because most people have something, you know, that they would like to be changed in the world, you know, and, you know, so I love the answer to that question that you gave, because that was like so amazing, because we need that. Necessary. So necessary. So again, thank you so much for hanging out with us, y'all. Fola has been such a gift and such a blessing, and I'm so excited that she was able to come on my couch today, despite all the things that she's doing, because she is so busy. So I appreciate her even taking the time out. And so I hope that you guys have enjoyed her, and that you will go follow her on her YouTube channel, because like I said, that's where I found her, and she's amazing. The gifts that she has and the things that she shares, you can tell that she shares from her heart. The music, where can they find the music?
Oh, the music. Oh, well, my partner's band that I've somehow been pulled into, it's called Villain, Villein. And that's on Spotify, Bandcamp. You feel like supporting through Bandcamp. And and then on Instagram as well, Villain the Fool. I guess I'm on Instagram too, deep_mind_squared, deep mind squared, some form of that. Yeah.
Awesome. And those things will be in the show notes as well. So she's provided those links, and, you know, but I wanted, you know, people to just hear, you know, that they can go, because a lot of times music is what connects us. You know, a lot of times we can listen to the words and all that stuff. And I found, especially like lately, I've been listening to Andre 3000's new joint.
Oh yeah. Cool.
And that is freaking fire. I meditate to that. That shit is so amazing.
Yeah, cool. That's a great idea.
Right? You know, and everybody talked about, you know, he's not rapping, blah, blah, blah. I said, but you know what? I said, I don't know if y'all have heard it, but that joint is spiritual. That thing is so much fire. I've meditated to it, and I'm like, Spotify is almost trying to make me pay so I can get it without commercials.
Funny. That's funny.
But anyway, this has been amazing though, and I'm so grateful. So grateful. And I hope that, you know, you guys go and follow her. She's on Instagram. She's on YouTube. Are you on any place else that you go? TikTok or Facebook or any other place?
No, that's it. Yeah, at this point. Yeah.
But she's on YouTube and on Instagram. So go and follow her there. The links will be in the show notes. And I'm just grateful. It's been such an amazing conversation. And you know what? I love having this talk. And we also want to wish you guys a happy holidays. The holidays are upon us, wherever you are in the world. If you have them, wonderful. If you don't, create your own holiday. So I have an amazing time. So thank you so much for joining me, Fola. And all of you, thank you for, listening, and thank you for showing
Thank
up.
you.
And if you're listening, make sure that you like and share and subscribe.
Oh.
In a world filled with chaos and uncertainty, sometimes all we need is a guiding light, a source of strength, and a shoulder to lean on. Introducing Magical Healing Transformation Support. You can get 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months of support, where our experienced spiritual guides are here to help you find your inner balance, discover your true purpose, and navigate life's challenges with grace. Go to the website https://tammymorrison.com for our offerings, or connect with me wherever you are listening to this. Send me a message. Get unleashed today.
I know you've been blown away with the amazing value here today. Now go out and inspire the planet. And be sure to send us a message when you're ready to come talk about it on Straight Outta Savannah, Talking with Tammi.